The fluorescent lights of Crawford and Associates hummed with that particular frequency that made my teeth ache after 8 hours of staring at spreadsheets. My eyes burned as I cross-referenced another column of numbers, the digits swimming together into an incomprehensible blur. 3 months into my probationary period as a junior accountant, and I was still trying to prove I deserved the mediocre salary and windowless cubicle they'd granted me. "Walsh, you coming or what?" Derek's voice cut through my concentration, making me jump and nearly knock over my lukewarm coffee. He leaned against my cubicle wall with that casual arrogance that came from having a father who golfed with the senior partners. I glanced at the clock. 7:30 p.m. on a Friday. Most of the office had cleared out hours ago, leaving only the desperate probationary employees and the workaholics who had nowhere better to be. I fell squarely into the first category. "Coming where?" I asked, already knowing I should say no to whatever he was about to propose. "Happy hour at the Meridian." He jerked his thumb toward where Amanda and Greg were hovering by the elevator, both looking far too pleased with themselves. "Come on, Walsh. You can't spend another Friday night color-coding expense reports." The Meridian. Even I knew that was the hotel bar where the city's elite went to see and be seen. It was the kind of place where a single cocktail cost more than my grocery budget for the week, where women wore designer dresses that probably cost more than my car, and where someone like me, with my sensible Target blazer and scuffed flats, would stick out like a sore thumb. "I don't think that's really my scene," I hedged, turning back to my computer screen. "That's the point." Amanda appeared at Derek's shoulder, her perfectly straightened hair not moving, despite her enthusiastic gesturing. "You need to loosen up, Penny. You've been here 3 months and you haven't come out with us once. Because every time you go out, someone ends up doing something that would make HR cringe," I thought, but didn't say. The stories of their escapades had become office legend, the kind of legend that made me grateful for my boring Friday nights at home with Netflix and instant ramen. I really should finish this. "The reconciliation can wait until Monday," Greg interrupted, his tie already loosened and top button undone. Besides, Hutchinson specifically said he didn't need it until next week. He was right, technically, but I'd learned early that exceeding expectations was the only way someone like me, no connections, no pedigree, just a state school degree and crushing student loans, could get ahead in a place like Crawford and Associates. "1 drink," Derek pressed. 1 hour. If you hate it, you can go home and do whatever it is you do on Friday nights. The condescension in his tone made something hot and defiant flare in my chest. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was 3 months of trying to be invisible and professional while my coworkers treated me like a quaint oddity. Maybe it was the soul-crushing realization that at 26, my most exciting Friday night plan involved deciding between chicken or beef-flavored ramen. "Fine," I heard myself say. 1 hour. Amanda squealed like I'd agreed to donate a kidney. "Oh my God, you're going to love it. The Meridian is incredible. The drinks are amazing and the crowd..." She paused meaningfully. "The crowd is very attractive." 45 minutes later, I was seriously regretting my moment of defiance. The Meridian's bar was everything I'd feared. All marble surfaces and soft jazz, populated by women in little black dresses that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and men in suits that screamed wealth and power. I felt like an imposter, painfully aware of my off-the-rack blazer and the fact that I'd had to Google what to wear to a fancy hotel bar. My coworkers had immediately gravitated toward a high-top table near the bar, ordering drinks with names I didn't recognize and prices that made me wince. I nursed a vodka soda, the cheapest thing on the menu that didn't scream poor, and tried to look like I belonged. "This place is dead tonight," Derek complained after his second whiskey. "Usually there's more action." "It's early," Amanda said, but even she looked disappointed as she scanned the room. "Give it time." I checked my phone discreetly. 8:45. 15 more minutes, and I could claim exhaustion and escape back to my studio apartment and the comfort of anonymity. That's when Derek's eyes lit up with that particular gleam that meant he was about to suggest something monumentally stupid. "I have an idea," he announced, leaning forward conspiratorially. "Let's make this interesting. How interesting, Greg asked, already grinning. A bet. Derek's gaze swept over our group before landing on me with predatory interest. Walsh, you're always so buttoned up, so professional. I bet you couldn't do something spontaneous if your life depended on it. My fingers tightened around my glass. What kind of something? Nothing crazy. His smile widened. Just see that guy over there? He nodded toward a table in the far corner, partially obscured by a decorative column. I bet you can't walk over there and sit on his lap. The absurdity of the suggestion made me laugh. You're joking. I'm completely serious. He pulled out his wallet, extracting a crisp $100 bill and laying it on the table. $100 says you won't do it, Amanda gasped. Derek, that's what? He challenged. Come on, where's your sense of adventure? It's harmless. Walsh walks over, sits down for like 10 seconds, and walks away. Easy money. $100. That was groceries for 2 weeks. That was a payment toward my crushing student loan debt. That was the difference between just surviving and actually living for once. That's sexual harassment, I pointed out, even as my mind calculated what that $100 could mean for my budget. It's only harassment if it's unwanted, Derek countered. He's at a bar on a Friday night. Trust me, he'll be flattered. And if he's not? Derek shrugged. Then you walk away. Look, Walsh, you're always talking about how you're going to prove yourself, show everyone you belong here. This is your chance to prove you're not just some boring number cruncher. Show us you can take a risk. The manipulation was transparent, but it worked anyway. 3 months of being treated like a background character, of being overlooked and underestimated, of watching people like Derek coast by on connections while I worked myself into exhaustion. It all crystallized into a sharp point of reckless defiance. 200, I heard myself say. Derek's eyebrows shot up. What? $200. If I'm going to potentially humiliate myself, it's going to be worth my while. He laughed, but there was respect in it. You know what? Sure, why not? He pulled out another 100, and Greg and Amanda quickly added their own contributions until a small pile of cash sat on the table. 400 total. If you do it, really do it, sit on his lap for at least 30 seconds. This is all yours. $400. My hands were trembling as I reached for my drink and downed the rest of it in one burning gulp. You're really going to do this? Amanda asked, and I couldn't tell if she was impressed or horrified. 1 lap, 30 seconds, $400, I confirmed, standing before I could talk myself out of it. The vodka burned warm in my stomach, giving me a false sense of courage. I walked toward the corner table with my heart hammering against my ribs, very aware of my coworkers watching me with gleeful anticipation. As I got closer, I could see the man Derek had pointed out more clearly. He sat alone, his back to most of the bar, broad shoulders filling out a charcoal suit jacket that even I could tell was custom-made. Dark hair, the kind of presence that seemed to command the space around him even in stillness. 30 seconds. $400. You can do this. I approached from the side, catching a glimpse of his profile. Sharp jawline, the kind of bone structure that belonged on magazine covers. My courage wavered. This was insane. What was I thinking? But $400. And Derek's smug face. And 3 months of being invisible. Before I could second-guess myself further, I moved around to face him and simply sat down on his lap. The world seemed to stop. He went absolutely still beneath me, every muscle tensing. I found myself looking into the most intense eyes I'd ever seen. Dark, calculating, with a dangerous intelligence that made my breath catch. This close, I could smell expensive cologne, something with notes of cedar and spice. This close, I could see that this wasn't just some wealthy businessman killing time at a hotel bar. This was a predator, and I had just walked into his territory. My voice came out strangled. I should... His hand moved to my waist with startling speed, his grip firm enough to keep me in place but not painful. When he spoke, his voice was low and smooth, with the faintest trace of an Italian accent that sent shivers down my spine. I don't recall inviting you to join me. It's a bet, I blurted out, my face burning. My coworkers, they bet me I wouldn't. This was a mistake. I'm so sorry. His eyes narrowed slightly, something dangerous flickering in their depths. A bet. He repeated the words as if testing them. And how much am I worth in this bet of yours? $400, I admitted, wanting nothing more than to disappear. I know it's stupid. I'll go. No. The word was quiet, but absolute. His hand remained on my waist, keeping me exactly where I was. You came over here to win a bet. The least I can do is make sure you win it. How long? I blinked at him, completely lost. What? How long do you need to stay to win your $400? 30 seconds, I whispered, very aware of the heat of his palm through the thin fabric of my blouse. But you don't have to. 30 seconds is nothing. Something that might have been amusement touched the corner of his mouth. I'm Preston, by the way, and you are? Penny, I managed. Penny Walsh. Well, Penny Walsh. You have terrible taste in friends if they're sending you to sit on strangers' laps for money. His thumb moved in a small circle against my waist, a gesture that should have felt creepy, but instead sent heat flooding through me. But excellent taste in strangers. A laugh bubbled up despite my mortification. Is that your line? I don't need lines. He said it as fact, not arrogance. Usually. Usually? Usually women don't approach me without... He paused, something shuddering in his expression. Without certain expectations. Before I could ask what he meant, a loud voice cut through the ambient noise of the bar. Preston, there you are! The hand on my waist tightened imperceptibly as Preston's entire demeanor changed. The brief moment of almost warmth vanished, replaced by cool control. I turned to see a man in his 60s approaching, followed by a beautiful woman in a red dress who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. I've been looking everywhere for... The older man stopped short when he saw me perched on Preston's lap, his expression shifting from jovial to confused to something harder. What the hell is this? Vincent. Preston's voice had gone cold. I wasn't aware we had an appointment. Vincent. The name ricocheted through my brain along with the woman's face, which had gone from poised to furious in the span of a heartbeat. Oh, God. This was someone important. Someone's husband, maybe. Someone's... We had an understanding, Vincent said tightly, his eyes on the woman in red. You and Paige were supposed to meet tonight, to finalize. The arrangement, the woman, Paige, finished, her voice sharp as a blade. The engagement that your father and mine have been negotiating for 6 months. The world tilted sickeningly. Engagement. I was sitting on the lap of an engaged man. An engaged man whose fiancée was currently staring at me with murder in her eyes. I tried to stand, to extract myself from this nightmare. But Preston's hand tightened, keeping me exactly where I was. I changed my mind, he said simply. Silence fell over our corner of the bar. Vincent's face flushed dark red. You changed your... Preston, you can't just... I can. Preston's voice remained calm, almost bored. But there was steel underneath. And I have. The arrangement between our families is terminated. Effective immediately. Your father is dead, Preston cut him off coldly. And I'm not him. I don't need alliances or arrangements. I certainly don't need... He paused, his eyes finding Paige's. No offense intended. Paige's perfectly made-up face contorted with rage. No offense. You humiliate me in public in front of my father with some... Her gaze raked over me with contempt. With some bar girl on your lap, and you think no offense covers it? She's not a bar girl, Preston said, and something in his tone made it clear that this was the only clarification he was going to offer. Then what is she? Vincent demanded. Who is she? Preston looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the calculation happening behind his eyes. Saw the exact moment he made a decision that would change everything. She's my fiancée, he said clearly. Penny Walsh, my future wife. The words landed like grenades. Paige's mouth fell open. Vincent's face went from red to purple, and I forgot how to breathe. What? I finally managed, my voice barely audible. Preston's hand shifted from my waist to curl around my hip, possessive and undeniable. You heard me. We're engaged. Preston, you've lost your mind, Vincent sputtered. You can't possibly. Your father arranged this union to strengthen ties between our families, to prevent... He stopped himself, but not before I caught something dangerous in his expression. To prevent what? Preston asked softly. Say it, Vincent. The older man's jaw worked. To maintain peace. You know what happens when the old alliances break down. What happened to the Santinos is exactly what will happen to anyone who challenges me, Preston finished. Including you. The engagement with Paige is over. This... He indicated me with a slight nod. This is my choice. My decision. Tell your daughter that she'll be compensated appropriately for the inconvenience. Compensated? Paige's voice rose to a shriek. You think you can buy me off like some... Yes, Preston interrupted. Because that's what this was. A business arrangement. And I'm terminating the contract. My father will never allow... Your father, Preston said with deadly calm, will accept what I offer him and be grateful, or he'll find out exactly how much power he's lost since his son died. The threat hung in the air, ugly and undeniable. Paige's face had gone pale, but Vincent's eyes burned with barely contained rage. This isn't over, he said quietly. Not even close. No, Preston agreed. It's just beginning. Now get out, both of you. They left, Paige's heels clicking sharply against the marble floor, Vincent's hand on her elbow as if to steady her, or restrain her. I watched them go with my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. The moment they disappeared from view, I tried again to stand. This time, Preston let me, his hand falling away. I stumbled back a step, my legs unsteady. What the hell was that? I demanded, my voice shaking. What did you just... Why would you... Sit down, Preston said, not unkindly. Before you fall down. I remained standing out of pure stubbornness. Even though he was right, my legs felt like water. You just told them I'm your fiancé. You told them... The full weight of what had happened crashed over me. Oh God, they think... Everyone's going to think... Penny. He stood, and even though I was wearing heels and he was only a few inches taller than me, something about his presence made him seem much larger. Breathe. Breathe? You just... I pressed my hands to my face. I came over here for a stupid bet. 30 seconds. That was it. And now... Now you're going to sit down, he interrupted, his hand on my elbow, guiding me into the chair across from his with surprising gentleness. And I'm going to explain. Explain what? How you just used me to get out of your engagement? How you just made me a target for some very angry people? How you... I stopped, a horrible realization dawning. My co-workers. They sent me over here. Derek specifically pointed you out. Preston's expression darkened. Did he? Oh, God. My stomach dropped. They knew who you were. This was... I looked over at the high top where my coworkers had been sitting. The table was empty. They were gone. They left right after you sat down, Preston confirmed, following my gaze. About 5 seconds after. Interesting timing, wouldn't you say? $400. A bet that seemed too good to be true. Derek's uncharacteristic generosity. The specific way he'd directed me to this table, in this corner, with this man. I need to go, I said, standing again. I need to. You need to stay exactly where you are, Preston contradicted. Because in about 30 seconds, Vincent is going to make a phone call. And in about 5 minutes, people are going to start taking notice of what happened here tonight. And in about an hour, everyone in this city who matters is going to know that Preston Mancini's engagement to Paige Costello is off. And that you're the reason why. Mancini. The name hit me like cold water. I might have been focused on proving myself at my dead-end accounting job, might have been living in my bubble of student loans and instant ramen, but even I knew the name Mancini. Everyone knew the Mancinis. Oh, God, I whispered. Oh, God, you're exactly who you think I am, he confirmed. Which is why you're not safe going home alone tonight. Or possibly ever again, depending on how vindictive Vincent decides to be. This can't be happening. This can't... I fumbled for my phone. I need to call someone. I need to... Who are you going to call? Preston asked reasonably. The police? To report that you willingly sat on my lap and now people think we're engaged? Your coworkers who clearly set you up? Your family who, I'm guessing from your reaction, you don't want to know about any of this? He was right on every count, which made it worse. What do you want from me? I finally asked, meeting his eyes. Something shifted in his expression. Not warmth, exactly. But not the cold calculation either. Right now, I want to buy you dinner, get you somewhere safe, and figure out who paid your coworkers to send you to my table. You think someone paid them? I know someone paid them, he corrected. The question is who, and why. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his mouth tightening. And we need to figure it out fast, because according to this text, the Costellos are already moving. And you, Penny Walsh. He looked at me with something that might have been regret. You just became the most dangerous person in the city to be. The elevator to Preston's penthouse was the kind that required a key card and probably a background check. I stood pressed against the mirrored wall, watching our reflections multiply into infinity. Him, calm and controlled in his perfectly tailored suit, and me, looking like I'd just witnessed a car accident. Which, in a way, I had. Except I was the car. You're going to wear a hole in your lip, Preston observed without looking at me. I released the flesh I'd been worrying between my teeth. Where are we going? Somewhere we can talk without Vincent's people watching. Somewhere with adequate security. The elevator doors opened directly into a foyer that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. My home. Of course, because this night couldn't get any more surreal. I followed him into a space that defied my understanding of city living. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan, like a glittering carpet of possibilities I'd never be able to afford. The furniture was all clean lines and expensive fabrics, the kind of minimalist design that only looked simple because every piece cost a fortune. Abstract art that might have been original Rothkos adorned the walls. Sit, Preston instructed, shrugging out of his jacket and draping it over a chair. He moved to a bar cart that probably held more alcohol than my local liquor store. What do you drink? I stopped myself. I'd had one vodka soda at the Meridian, and look where that had gotten me. Water. Just water. He poured me a glass from a crystal pitcher, then fixed himself what looked like whiskey. Neat. Of course. I perched on the edge of a leather sofa that probably cost more than my car, clutching the water glass like a lifeline. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since we left the bar. Derek, Amanda, Greg, unknown numbers. I'd silenced it finally, unable to face whatever messages awaited me. Preston settled into the chair across from me, his movements economical and controlled. Now that we were alone, I could study him more carefully. He was younger than I'd initially thought, maybe early 30s, but there was something ancient in his eyes, something that had seen too much too soon. "Talk to me about your coworkers," he said. "How well do you know them?" I laughed, the sound bitter. Not at all, apparently. I've been at Crawford & Associates for 3 months. I'm still probationary. They've been friendly, but I always assumed it was... I shrugged. Surface-level office politics. Crawford & Associates. He pulled out his phone, fingers moving quickly. Accounting firm, mid-sized. Your role? Junior accountant. Nothing glamorous. I reconcile expense reports and double-check other people's work. And tonight? Whose idea was it to go to the Meridian? I thought back, trying to remember. Derek's. He suggested it right as I was finishing up. Said I needed to loosen up, that I never came out with them. Which was true? Yes. I took a sip of water, trying to ease the dryness in my throat. I usually go straight home after work. I have student loans, and going out in the city is expensive. And I stopped, realizing how pathetic I sounded. I'm not exactly part of their social circle. But tonight they specifically insisted you come. It wasn't a question. Yes, Derek was particularly pushy about it. The memory felt different now, tainted. He wouldn't take no for an answer. Preston's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. And the bet. Walk me through exactly how that happened. I recounted the conversation, including the escalation from $100 to $400. With each detail, Preston's expression grew darker. $400, he murmured. Just enough to be tempting for someone in your situation, but not so much that it seemed suspicious. The assessment stung, probably because it was accurate. I thought I was being clever, negotiating up. You were being manipulated. He set his glass down with a soft click. They knew your financial situation. Knew what amount would make you take the risk. Knew exactly where to position you and when. But why? The question had been circling my mind since we left the bar. What possible reason would anyone have to disrupt my engagement to Paige Costello? He stood, moving to the windows. With the city lights behind him, he looked like a king surveying his kingdom, or a predator choosing his next move. The marriage was arranged by our fathers before mine died 2 years ago. It was supposed to solidify an alliance between our families, prevent the kind of territorial disputes that tend to get bloody. I processed this, my accounting brain trying to make the numbers add up. So someone wanted to prevent that alliance. More than prevent it. They wanted to blow it up spectacularly, in public, in a way that would make reconciliation impossible. He turned to face me. Having me reject Paige for a random woman would be bad enough. But the way it happened, with you on my lap, like... He stopped himself. Vincent won't forgive that. Can't forgive it. Not without looking weak to the other families. Other families. The words felt surreal in my mouth. You mean other crime families? I prefer to think of it as business. But there was acknowledgement in his eyes. He wasn't going to lie to me. But yes, Vincent Costello controls the North Shore operations. My family handles the city and southern territories. The Santinos used to manage the ports, but they made the mistake of getting greedy 2 years ago. What happened to them? His smile was cold. They're no longer a concern. The implication sent ice through my veins. And you think the Santinos are behind this? But you just said... I said they're no longer a concern as a family. That doesn't mean individuals don't still hold grudges. He moved back to his chair, fixing me with those intense dark eyes. Tell me about Derek, his last name. Hutchinson. Derek Hutchinson. Preston's fingers flew across his phone again. After a moment, his mouth tightened. Derek Hutchinson. Father is James Hutchinson, senior partner at Crawford & Associates. Mother is Maria Sorrentino Hutchinson. The water glass nearly slipped from my fingers. Sorrentino. Specifically, niece of Antonio Sorrentino, who was, until my father eliminated him, the head of the Sorrentino family. He turned the phone to show me a photo. A formal family portrait. There was Derek, younger but unmistakable, standing beside a severe-looking woman, and the man I assumed was his father. Oh God. My voice came out as a whisper. Derek set this up. He used me to get revenge, Preston finished, by destroying my alliance with the Costellos, by making it impossible for our families to unite, and possibly... He paused, something dangerous flickering across his face. Possibly by putting you in the crosshairs. A way to hurt me through someone innocent. But he doesn't even know you. I don't know you. He knows of me. Knows what his uncle's death did to his family's standing, their territory, their power. Preston leaned forward, elbows on his knees. And now he's used you as a weapon. The question is whether this is just about revenge, or if it's part of something larger. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at it reflexively. Another unknown number. The preview showed a text. You made a very dangerous enemy tonight. Preston plucked the phone from my hand before I could react, reading the message. His expression went flat and cold. Block this number, and any other number you don't recognize. Shouldn't we, I don't know, tell someone? The police? And tell them what? He handed my phone back. That people are sending you vaguely threatening texts? That you sat on my lap at a bar and now my ex-fiance's family might be upset? The police won't help you, Penny. Half of them are on someone's payroll, and the other half know better than to get involved in family business. So what am I supposed to do? Panic was rising in my chest, making it hard to breathe. Just wait for someone to... To what? Come after me? No. He stood, moving toward me with that same controlled grace. You're going to stay here, where I can protect you, where Vincent's people can't reach you. I stood too, needing to feel less trapped. I can't just move into your penthouse. I have a life, a job, an apartment, all of which are compromised now. His voice was gentle but implacable. Vincent will have people watching your apartment within the hour if he doesn't already. Your workplace is where this started, which means it's connected to the Sorrentinos. And your life, he paused. Your life as you knew it ended the moment you sat on my lap. The brutal honesty of it made me want to cry, or scream, or both. This isn't fair. I didn't do anything wrong. My voice broke. I just wanted $400 to help with rent. Something shifted in Preston's expression. Not quite sympathy, but something softer than the cold calculation I'd seen so far. I know, and I'm sorry you got caught up in this. But right now, we need to focus on keeping you alive long enough to figure out who else is involved and what they're really planning. What they're really planning? This wasn't the whole plan? Using you to break up my engagement is a tactic, not an endgame. He moved back to the bar cart, refilling his glass. The Sorrentinos don't think small. If Derek, and whoever's backing him, went to this much trouble to position you perfectly, to manipulate you into my path at exactly the right moment, then this is part of something bigger. Like what? Like war. He said it simply, matter-of-factly. The kind that leaves bodies in the street and reshapes the entire power structure of the city. The kind my father spent 20 years preventing. The kind that started the moment I told Vincent his daughter wasn't good enough for me. I sank back onto the sofa, my legs no longer capable of holding me up. You could fix this. You could tell them it was a mistake, that I'm not really your fiancé, that it's too late for that. He returned to his chair, his expression grave. The moment I claimed you publicly, you became mine in the eyes of every family in this city. Walking it back now would make me look weak, indecisive. It would be blood in the water. So I'm just, what, stuck being your fake fiancé because you can't admit you made an impulsive decision? Yes. No apology, no softening. Because the alternative is you dead in an alley somewhere, and me looking for a new wife while Vincent and the Santinos carve up my territory. The casual way he discussed my potential death made my stomach turn. You can't just keep me here. That's kidnapping. You're free to leave anytime you want. He gestured toward the elevator. But the moment you step outside this building without my protection, you're vulnerable. And make no mistake, Penny, people are looking for you right now. People who want to use you, hurt you, or kill you, depending on what serves their interests best. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a photo. Me, walking into the Meridian with my coworkers. Someone had been watching even then. Preston held out his hand. Let me see. I gave him the phone, watching as his jaw tightened. He showed me the screen. Below the photo was a message. Pretty girl, shame about what's going to happen to her. Block it, he ordered, his voice hard. And give me your coworkers' contact information. All of them. I did, my fingers trembling as I forwarded the information to his phone. He made a call, speaking in rapid Italian to someone on the other end. I caught the names Derek, Amanda, and Greg before he switched to words I didn't understand. When he hung up, his expression was grim. My people will track them down, find out exactly who paid them and how much. But that's going to take time. And what do I do in the meantime? Just hide here and hope no one kills me? No. You're going to help me figure out what the Santinos are really planning. Because you work at an accounting firm, Penny. And the Santinos' primary business has always been financial manipulation and money laundering. He leaned forward. What are the odds that they put their nephew in the same firm where you work just to set up this one encounter? The implication hit me like a physical blow. You think there's something bigger happening at Crawford & Associates. I think Derek Hutchinson's mother's family specializes in hiding money and making financial crimes look legitimate. I think his father is a senior partner at a mid-sized accounting firm that probably handles a lot of different clients. And I think you being there, being vulnerable and manipulable, was too perfect an opportunity to pass up. My mind raced through everything I knew about the firm. The clients we handled, the accounts I'd worked on. We do corporate accounting, tax preparation, estate planning, nothing that seemed... I stopped. Wait, there was one client, Castellano Holdings. Preston went very still. When? 2 months ago. I didn't work on the account directly, but I remember seeing it because... I paused, my accountant brain catching up. Because the senior accountant who handled it disappeared, just stopped coming to work. I thought he'd been fired, but no one would talk about it. His name, Richard Chen. He'd been with the firm for 15 years. Preston made another call, this one shorter and more intense. When he hung up, his expression was dangerous. Richard Chen is dead, found in the Hudson River 3 weeks ago. Police ruled it a suicide. Oh, God. My stomach lurched. You don't think... I think Richard Chen found something he wasn't supposed to find. Something in my family's accounts that someone planted there. and I think whoever killed him is the same person orchestrating all of this." He stood, pacing toward the windows. "The Santinos are trying to take me down from the inside, through my finances. And you—" He turned to face me. "You were supposed to be collateral damage, a distraction. Someone to weaken me emotionally while they dismantled me financially. But I'm not. We're not." I gestured helplessly between us. "You don't even know me. How would I weaken you emotionally?" His smile was sharp and humorless. "Because now I'm responsible for you. Now I have to protect you, dedicate resources to keeping you safe, worry about your welfare. It divides my attention, makes me vulnerable." He moved closer. "And if they manage to hurt you despite my protection, it makes me look weak, unable to protect what's mine." "I'm not yours," I said automatically, even though we both knew it was a lie. In every way that mattered to his world, I was. "Not yet," he agreed. "But you will be. Because this charade we're playing, it's going to have to become real. At least real enough to convince everyone who matters that I chose you over Paige Costello for a reason beyond impulse." "What reason could possibly—" "Love." The word sounded foreign in his mouth, like he was speaking a language he'd never learned properly. Or at least obsession, desire, something strong enough to make me break a decades-old alliance. Something that makes sense to people who understand passion, if not loyalty. I laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. "You want people to believe you fell madly in love with me after I sat on your lap for 30 seconds? People believe what they want to believe. And a powerful man making a foolish choice for a beautiful woman? That's a story as old as time." He moved closer still, close enough that I could smell his cologne again. "Besides, it's not that far from the truth, is it?" "What truth?" "That you caught my attention." His eyes held mine. "That in those 30 seconds there was something. You felt it too." I wanted to deny it. Wanted to claim that the flutter in my stomach, the heat that had spread through me when his hand touched my waist, was just adrenaline and fear. But that would be a lie. That was just... I searched for words. Surprise. Shock. "Chemistry," he corrected. "Which we're going to need if we're going to sell this. Because tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up here. You're going to stay here. And you're going to become Penny Walsh, fiancée of Preston Mancini. And everyone is going to believe it. And if I refuse, then you die." He said it simply, without drama. "Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but eventually someone will get to you. And I'll have lost my leverage over Vincent, my chance to figure out what the Santinos are really planning, and any hope of preventing the war that's coming. So, I don't actually have a choice. You have the choice to survive or not survive. Everything else is just details." He moved back to give me space. "The guest room is through there. You'll find everything you need. In the morning, we'll go shopping for clothes, get you anything else you require, and then we'll start planning our next move." "Which is what?" "Finding out who else is involved in this, what they've done to my accounts, and how we stop them before this turns into a bloodbath." He paused at the doorway. "Oh, and Penny, don't try to leave. I have security throughout the building, and they have orders to keep you safe, even if that means keeping you here against your will." "I thought you said I was free to go." His smile was cold. I lied. Good night. He left me alone in his palatial living room, with the city sparkling below like a promise of freedom I could no longer claim. I moved to the windows, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. 12 hours ago, I'd been a nobody. A junior accountant with student loans and no prospects. Now I was engaged to a mafia boss, trapped in a penthouse, and apparently a key piece in some elaborate revenge plot that had already cost at least one person their life. My phone buzzed one more time. Another unknown number. Another message. "Welcome to the family, Penny Walsh. Hope you survive it." I blocked the number with shaking hands and turned off my phone entirely. Whatever was coming, I'd face it in the morning. When I was rested. When I could think clearly. When I could figure out how a stupid bet for $400 had turned into a life sentence. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Vincent Costello's face contorted with rage, or Paige's perfectly made-up features twisted with humiliation. Or worse, Derek's calculated smile as he'd pushed that stack of bills across the table. $400, the price of my complete upheaval. The guest room Preston had indicated was larger than my entire studio apartment. A king-sized bed with sheets that probably cost more than my monthly rent. An ensuite bathroom with heated floors and a rainfall shower. A walk-in closet that currently held nothing but empty hangers and the faint scent of cedar. Everything was pristine, impersonal, like a 5-star hotel room. Nothing about it said, home. Everything about it said, gilded cage. Around 4 a.m, I gave up on sleep entirely and moved to the window. My room faced east, and I watched the sky gradually lighten from black to deep purple to the pale gray of early dawn. The city was quieter at this hour, the usual chaos muted to a distant hum. From this height, the people below looked like ants, insignificant and interchangeable. I wondered if that's how Preston saw everyone. If that's how he saw me. A soft knock at my door made me jump. Before I could respond, it opened to reveal a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore black slacks and a crisp white blouse, and carried a tray that smelled like coffee and fresh pastries. "Good morning, Miss Walsh," she said, her accent placing her origins somewhere in Eastern Europe. "I'm Katerina. I manage Mr. Mancini's household. He thought you might be awake early." She set the tray on a small table by the window, her movements efficient and practiced. Up close, I could see the sharp intelligence in her eyes, the way she assessed me in a single sweeping glance. "Thank you," I managed, my voice rough from disuse. "You didn't have to. Mr. Mancini was very specific about your care." She poured coffee into a delicate china cup. "Cream and sugar are here. The pastries are fresh from the bakery on 5th Avenue. If you have any dietary restrictions or preferences, please let me know and I'll adjust accordingly." The normality of the conversation felt surreal, as if I were a legitimate guest, not a prisoner who'd stumbled into a nightmare. "This is fine. Thank you, Katerina." She nodded, moving toward the door. "Mr. Mancini has meetings this morning, but he's arranged for you to have a shopping appointment at 10. There's a selection of temporary clothing in the closet that should suffice until then. His assistant will accompany you." "I can't just go shopping. I need to..." "What? Go to work? Face Derek and the others after what they'd done? Return to my apartment that was probably being watched? I need to contact my landlord. Let him know I'll be late with rent." Something that might have been sympathy flickered across Katerina's face. "Mr. Mancini has already handled your rent and your other outstanding bills. He thought it would be one less thing for you to worry about." The words hit me like ice water. "He did what?" "Your rent, utilities, student loan payment for this month, credit card minimum payment. He had his people pull your financial records and take care of everything that was immediately pressing." She said it like it was perfectly normal, not a massive invasion of privacy. "He didn't want you distracted by financial stress while you adjust to your new situation." I stood abruptly, coffee forgotten. "Where is he?" "In his office." "But Miss Walsh, he specifically said not to." I was already moving past her, out into the hallway. The penthouse was even more massive than I'd realized last night. Multiple hallways branched off from the main living space, leading to rooms I hadn't seen. I followed the sound of Preston's voice, speaking in that same rapid Italian I'd heard last night. His office door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open without knocking. Preston sat behind a massive desk made of dark wood, his phone pressed to his ear. He was dressed more casually than last night, dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. The morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him cast him in sharp relief, highlighting the strong line of his jaw, the dark stubble he hadn't yet shaved. He looked up as I entered, something flickering in his eyes. He said something sharp in Italian and ended the call. "You pulled my financial records," I said without preamble. "You paid my bills without asking. Good morning to you too." He set his phone down. "Yes, I did. Problem?" "Problem? You invaded my privacy. You had no right." "I had every right." He stood, moving around the desk with that predatory grace that made my heart rate spike. "The moment you became associated with me, your life became my responsibility. That includes making sure you're not evicted or having your utilities shut off while you're under my protection." And that's not protection. That's control. It's both. He stopped a few feet away, studying me with those intense, dark eyes. "You're in my world now, Penny. That means I need to know everything about you. Your finances, your contacts, your daily routine, who you talk to, where you go, what you eat for breakfast, everything that could be used against you or against me. That's insane. You can't just..." I gestured helplessly. "You can't just take over someone's entire life. I can when that someone's life is in danger because of me." His voice softened slightly. "I know this is overwhelming. I know you didn't ask for any of this. But the reality is that you're here, and you're mine now. And that means I protect what's mine. All of it. Even the parts you think you can handle yourself." "I'm not yours," I said, even though we'd had this argument last night and I'd lost then too. "Legally, not yet. But in every way that matters to the families in this city, you are. And that means I need to know that you're taken care of, that there are no weak points someone can exploit." He moved closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "Would you prefer I let you struggle with rent while dodging Vincent's people? Let your student loans go into default while you're here? Let your credit score tank because you can't access your apartment to get your bills?" And put that way, it almost sounded reasonable. Almost. "You should have asked first." "And if you'd said no?" He raised an eyebrow. "Would that have changed anything? You're still here. Still in danger. Still under my protection. All I did was remove a few immediate stressors so you could focus on staying alive." I wanted to argue, to insist on my independence, but the truth was he was right. I hadn't even thought about my bills, my rent, my carefully balanced budget that would collapse if I missed even a single payment. He'd taken care of it before I'd even realized it was a problem. "How much do I owe you?" I asked finally. "Nothing." He returned to his desk, picking up a different phone. "Consider it a signing bonus for your new position." "What new position?" "As my fiancé." He said it casually, as if discussing the weather. "It's a full-time job, and it pays considerably better than junior accountant at Crawford & Associates. Which reminds me, you're not going back there." "What? I can't just quit. I'm still probationary. If I don't, I've already handled it." He made a note on a pad of paper, his attention already drifting back to whatever he'd been working on. "As of this morning, you've resigned for personal reasons. You'll receive 2 weeks severance despite the probationary status, and a neutral reference if you need one in the future." My mouth fell open. "You can't. I didn't authorize." The moment Derek Hutchinson and his Sorrentino connections were confirmed, that office became a security risk. Preston looked up, his expression hard. "You're not going anywhere near that place again. not until we know exactly who else is involved and what they're planning. So what am I supposed to do? Just sit here in your penthouse and play dress-up? Today? Yes. You're going shopping with Katerina and 2 of my security people. You're going to get a new wardrobe, new phone, anything else you need. Tomorrow, we're attending a charity gala where you'll be formally introduced as my fiancé. And after that, he paused. After that, you're going to help me figure out what the Santinos did to my accounts, because you're an accountant, Penny. And right now, I need someone I can trust to dig through my finances and find whatever Richard Chen found before they killed him. The shift from prisoner to partner was so abrupt, it gave me whiplash. You trust me? I trust that you want to survive. And I trust that you have the skills I need and no loyalty to the people trying to destroy me. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Sit. Let me show you what we're dealing with. I sat, curiosity overriding my anger. Preston turned his laptop to face me, showing a spreadsheet that made my accountant heart sing, even as the numbers themselves made my stomach drop. This is Castellano Holdings' master account, he explained. It feeds into 24 subsidiary companies, real estate, import-export, restaurants, nightclubs, construction. Legitimate businesses that generate legitimate income. An illegitimate income, I added, because I wasn't naive. An illegitimate income, he agreed without shame. But it's all properly laundered and accounted for. Or it was. 3 months ago, discrepancies started appearing. Small at first, a few $1,000s here and there. Easy to miss in the normal flow of business. I leaned forward, studying the numbers, but they got bigger. Much bigger. Last month alone, $250,000 vanished from the construction company account. The month before, $300,000 from import-export. He pulled up another screen. Someone very good is moving money out of my accounts and making it look legitimate. Transfer fees, tax payments, licensing costs, all things that should be happening, but at inflated amounts. You think the Santinos are stealing from you and using Crawford and Associates to hide it? I know they are. What I don't know is exactly how they're doing it, where the money's going, or how deep the rot goes. Richard Chen figured it out, at least part of it, and they killed him for it. I studied the spreadsheet, my mind already working through the patterns. You need a full forensic audit, possibly going back 6 months or more. It'll take weeks. You have weeks, however long you need. He closed the laptop. But I need you focused, no distractions, no running back to your old life, no contact with anyone from Crawford and Associates. And what do you get out of this, besides your money back? His smile was sharp. I get leverage. Once we prove the Santinos are stealing from me, I have justification for retaliation. War isn't just about who has the most soldiers. It's about who has the moral high ground, or at least the appearance of it. If I move against them because they broke our engagement, I look petty. If I move against them because they've been systematically robbing me blind, I look justified. And Vincent Costello? What about him? Vincent is complicated. Preston leaned back in his chair. He's angry about the broken engagement, but he's also pragmatic. If I can prove the Santinos were manipulating events to start a war between our families, Vincent becomes my ally instead of my enemy. The enemy of my enemy and all that. So I'm not just helping you recover stolen money. I'm helping you prevent a war. You're helping me win a war that's already started. The first shot was fired the moment Derek Hutchinson paid you to sit on my lap. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. Speaking of which, we found Derek. My heart jumped. And he's singing like a canary. Apparently, his uncle Enzo, Antonio Sorrentino's brother, approached him 6 months ago with a proposition. Use his position at Crawford and Associates to help skim money from Castellano Holdings. In exchange, Enzo would give him a cut and help him avenge his uncle's death. How big a cut? $5 million over the course of a year, more than enough to buy Derek's cooperation. Preston's jaw tightened. But the money was never the real goal. It was all about positioning, getting someone inside the firm that handled my accounts, having access to make subtle changes that would bleed me dry slowly enough that I wouldn't notice until it was too late. And Amanda? Greg? Paid $10,000 each to convince you to come out last night and then push you toward my table. They didn't know why, didn't ask questions, just took the money and did what they were told. $10,000. 20 times what they'd bet me. The calculation made me feel sick. What happens to them now? Preston's expression went cold. That depends on how cooperative they continue to be. If they tell us everything they know, give us names and details, they might survive this. If they hold anything back... He shrugged. Well, the Santinos have demonstrated that loose ends tend to end up in the Hudson River. You can't just kill them. The protest came automatically, even though I wasn't sure I believed it. I won't have to. Fear will keep them honest. He stood. Go. Katerina's waiting to take you shopping. Get whatever you need. Don't think about the cost. I want you properly equipped. And Penny? He caught my wrist as I turned to leave, his grip gentle but unmistakable. Thank you. For what? For not running. For sitting down and listening instead of just reacting. For being smart enough to see that we need each other right now. His thumb traced a small circle on my wrist, sending unwanted heat through my veins. I know I'm asking a lot, demanding things I have no right to demand, but you're handling it better than most people would. The compliment shouldn't have warmed me, but it did. I pulled my wrist free, needing distance from the confusing feelings his touch provoked. I'm still angry about the bills thing. Noted. His smile was genuine this time, transforming his face from coldly handsome to devastatingly attractive. Feel free to yell at me about it later, after you've had coffee and breakfast. Katerina tells me you didn't eat. I wasn't hungry. Eat anyway. You're going to need your strength for what's coming. He returned his attention to his laptop, effectively dismissing me. And Penny? When you come back, we need to talk about the gala tomorrow night, about how we're going to convince several hundred of the city's most influential people that our engagement is real. I left before I could ask what he meant by that, before I could let myself think too hard about the implications. Back in my room, I found that Katerina had indeed left a selection of clothing in the closet. Designer pieces in my size, tasteful and expensive. I chose dark jeans and a silk blouse in deep green, both of which fit perfectly. Of course they did. Preston probably knew my measurements better than I did at this point. The thought should have infuriated me. Instead, it just made me tired. I ate the breakfast Katerina had brought, forcing down pastry and fruit I couldn't taste. My mind was already spinning through the spreadsheets Preston had shown me, the patterns beginning to emerge. This was what I was good at, finding discrepancies, following money trails, making sense of numbers when nothing else made sense. Maybe that's why I wasn't fighting harder to escape. Maybe that's why some part of me was almost excited about the challenge of the forensic audit. Or maybe, whispered a treacherous voice in the back of my mind, it's because when Preston touches you, when he looks at you like you're the only person in the room, you feel something you've never felt before. I pushed the thought away violently. Stockholm Syndrome. That's all this was. A psychological response to captivity. It didn't mean anything. It couldn't mean anything. Because the alternative, that I was actually starting to feel something real for the dangerous man who'd upended my entire life, was too terrifying to contemplate. Katerina knocked again at exactly 10. The car is ready, Miss Walsh, and your security detail is waiting downstairs. I took one last look at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back looked polished, put together, like someone who belonged in Preston Mancini's world. She looked nothing like me. But maybe, I thought as I followed Katerina out, that was the point. Penny Walsh, junior accountant with student loans and no prospects, was gone. In her place was Penny Walsh, fiancée of a mafia boss, trapped in a war she didn't understand but was somehow central to. And God help me, some part of me was curious to see who that woman would become. The boutique Katerina took me to didn't have a sign. It didn't need one. The understated elegance of the storefront, with its single dress displayed in the window like a work of art, screamed exclusivity louder than any placard could. The kind of place where if you had to ask the price, you couldn't afford it. 2 men in dark suits flanked us as we entered. My security detail, as Katerina had called them. Marco and Luca. Both moved with the controlled efficiency of men who'd seen violence and weren't afraid of it. Both watched every person on the street like potential threats. I'd never had bodyguards before. The weight of their presence was suffocating. Miss Walsh, welcome. A woman in her 40s glided toward us, her silver hair styled in an elegant chignon, her black dress simple but clearly expensive. I'm Simone. Mr. Mancini called ahead with your measurements and preferences. I've pulled several pieces I think you'll love. My preferences? I echoed, looking at Katerina. The older woman's lips quirked. Mr. Mancini is very observant. He noticed the style of dress you wore last night, the colors you tend toward. He wants you comfortable, not costumed. The attention to detail should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt oddly considerate, which somehow made everything worse. It was easier to hate Preston when he was being controlling. Harder when he was being thoughtful. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of silk and cashmere, of clothes that probably cost more individually than my entire previous wardrobe combined. Simone had an expert eye, pulling pieces that somehow made me look like a more refined version of myself. Tailored pants and flowing blouses. Cocktail dresses that hugged without clinging. A black gown for the gala tomorrow that made me look like someone who belonged on Preston's arm. You have excellent bone structure, Simone commented as she adjusted the gown's neckline. Classic features. Mr. Mancini chose well. The phrasing made me sound like a purchase. Maybe I was. We didn't exactly choose each other, I said before I could stop myself. Simone's eyes met mine in the mirror, understanding flickering in their depths. Few people in Mr. Mancini's world do. But that doesn't mean it can't become a choice eventually. Was that supposed to be comforting? I couldn't tell. By the time we finished, I had enough clothes to fill the walk-in closet back at the penthouse. Shoes, bags, jewelry, all carefully selected, all absurdly expensive, all charged to Preston's account without even a mention of cost. Your new phone, Katerina said, as we settled back into the car, handing me a sleek device. Mr. Mancini has already programmed the important numbers. His personal line is 1, mine is 2. Marco and Luca are 3 and 4. Emergency services is 5. I turned the phone over in my hands. It was the latest model, top of the line. Of course it was. What about my old contacts? My friends? Mr. Mancini thought it best if you started fresh. At least for now, until we know who can be trusted. Katerina's voice was gentle but firm. Anyone from your old life could be compromised. Anyone could be used to get to you. I don't have that many friends, I admitted. The truth of it stung. I'd been so focused on work, on surviving, that I'd let relationships atrophy. But my landlord, all handled through Mr. Mancini's people. You don't need to worry about any of it. Because Preston had taken over my entire life. Because I'd ceased to exist as an independent person and become an extension of him. We were approaching the building when Luca's phone buzzed. He answered in rapid Italian, his expression darkening. He said something sharp to Marco, who immediately leaned forward to speak to the driver. Change of plans, Marco said, his accent thick. "We're not going back to the penthouse. Not yet." "Why not?" I demanded, fear spiking through me. "The Costellos paid a visit while we were gone. Mr. Mancini is handling it, but he wants you somewhere safe until the situation is resolved." Marco's jaw was tight. "We're taking you to the safe house." "What situation? Is Preston okay?" "Boss is fine," Luca assured me. "But Vincent brought his whole crew. It's a show of force, a message." The car accelerated, weaving through traffic with practiced ease. I gripped the door handle, my heart hammering. This was real. This wasn't just vague threats and hypothetical danger. Men with guns had shown up at Preston's home because of me. The safe house turned out to be a luxury apartment in a different part of the city, this one in a nondescript building that looked decidedly middle class from the outside. Inside, though, it was just as opulent as Preston's penthouse, if slightly smaller. "Stay away from the windows," Marco instructed as Katerina ushered me inside. "Don't answer the door for anyone except us or Mr. Mancini. There's food in the kitchen, entertainment systems in every room. You'll be comfortable." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." He positioned himself by the door, hand resting casually near what I now realized was a shoulder holster. "Boss will be here as soon as he can." Katerina set my shopping bags in what appeared to be the master bedroom, then returned to the living room. "Can I get you anything, Miss Walsh? Tea? Something stronger?" "Information," I said. "What exactly happened? What did Vincent want?" She exchanged a glance with Marco, who gave a small nod. "Vincent came to discuss the broken engagement. He brought his sons and his top lieutenants. 20 men, all armed. He wanted to make it clear that the insult to his daughter wouldn't be forgotten." "Did anyone get hurt?" "No. Mr. Mancini is very good at de-escalation when he wants to be." Katerina's tone suggested Preston was equally good at escalation when necessary. "But Vincent made threats, said that if Mr. Mancini was going to choose you over an alliance with the Costellos, then you'd better be worth dying for." The words sent ice through my veins. He threatened to kill me? He threatened to kill anyone who stands between him and what he wants, which right now includes you. Marco's expression was grim. "That's why you're here. Why you'll stay here until boss decides it's safe." I sank onto the leather sofa, my legs no longer capable of supporting me. This morning, I'd been angry about Preston paying my bills without asking. Now, people were threatening to kill me. The whiplash was making me dizzy. "I don't understand," I said quietly. "Why does Vincent care this much? It was an arranged marriage. Surely Paige can find someone else." "It's not about Paige," Katerina said, sitting beside me. "It's about power, about respect. For decades, an alliance between the Mancinis and the Costellos has been assumed. Generations have planned for it. And then Mr. Mancini breaks it publicly, for a woman Vincent has never heard of, in the most humiliating way possible." "He could still fix it," I protested. "Tell Vincent it was a mistake, that—" "It's too late for that." Preston's voice came from the doorway. I hadn't heard him arrive, but there he was, still in the clothes from this morning, but with his shirt sleeves rolled down now, his tie perfectly knotted. He looked composed, controlled. Only the tightness around his eyes betrayed any stress. Vincent's already made his position clear. He wants blood or money, preferably both. Marco and Luca immediately straightened, differentially backing toward the door. Katerina rose smoothly. "I'll prepare dinner," she said, giving us privacy. Preston waited until we were alone, before moving to the bar cart and pouring himself 2 fingers of whiskey. He downed it in one swallow, then poured another. "How bad was it?" I asked. "Bad enough that I'm glad you weren't there." He turned to face me, leaning against the bar. "Vincent brought his sons, Dante and Luca, not to be confused with my Luca. Both of them have grudges against my family going back years. They wanted an excuse for violence. I didn't give them one. What did you give them? A proposal. He swirled the whiskey in his glass. Vincent wants compensation for the broken engagement. He suggested $5 million and a public apology. My eyes widened. $5 million, which I countered with $2 million and a private acknowledgement that the engagement ended by mutual dissolution, not public rejection. Preston's smile was cold. He didn't like that. What did he say? That he'd think about it, that he'd be in touch, that he hoped I knew what I was doing, throwing away decades of alliance for... He paused, his eyes meeting mine. For a woman who meant nothing a week ago. The words stung, even though they were true. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're losing millions of dollars because I was stupid enough to take a bet. Don't. He set his glass down hard enough that I jumped. Don't apologize for being manipulated. Derek and whoever's backing him knew exactly what buttons to push. They studied you, Penny, found your weaknesses. $400 was probably calculated down to the dollar as the exact amount that would make you take the risk. That doesn't make me feel better. It should. He moved to sit in the chair across from me. It means you're not stupid. You're human. And humans can be manipulated if someone understands them well enough. Do you? I asked quietly. Understand me? His eyes held mine. I'm starting to. You're proud. Independent. You don't like accepting help because you've been alone for so long that self-sufficiency feels like survival. You're smarter than you let people see because you've learned that being underestimated is sometimes safer than being noticed. And you're terrified right now, but trying very hard not to show it because you think fear is weakness. The accuracy of his assessment made my throat tight. You got all that from one night? I got that from watching how you handle yourself under pressure. From the way you stood up to me this morning even though you knew I held all the power. From the fact that you're sitting here asking questions instead of falling apart. He leaned forward. You're stronger than you think, Penny Walsh, and that's going to serve you well in what's coming. What is coming? Tomorrow night's gala is going to be a battlefield. He said it calmly, like discussing the weather. Every major family in the city will be there. Vincent will be there with Paige, showing the world that the Costellos aren't diminished by my rejection. The Santinos will have representatives there, watching to see if their plan is working. And you and I will walk in together, presenting a united front that tells everyone we're serious about this engagement. How are we supposed to convince anyone we're in love when we've known each other less than 24 hours? The same way actors convince audiences they're in love. We sell it. We touch each other like we can't help it. We look at each other like no one else exists. We tell a story with our bodies that makes people believe what they're seeing. His gaze intensified. And the best way to sell a lie is to make it as close to the truth as possible. What truth? He stood, moving to sit beside me on the sofa. Close enough that I could feel the heat of him, smell the faint scent of his cologne mixing with whiskey. The truth that there's chemistry between us, that when I touch you, you react, that when you look at me, there's something in your eyes that isn't just fear. That's just... I searched for words. Adrenaline, stress, proximity. Is it? His hand came up to cup my jaw, his thumb tracing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. Then why is your pulse racing? Why are your pupils dilated? Why are you leaning toward me instead of away? I hadn't realized I was leaning toward him until he pointed it out. I forced myself to stay still, to not give him the satisfaction of seeing how much his touch affected me. This is manipulation, I said, but my voice came out breathy instead of firm. This is chemistry, he corrected, and we're going to use it tomorrow night. I'm going to touch you like this. His hand slid from my jaw to the back of my neck, his fingers threading through my hair. I'm going to look at you like this. His eyes dropped to my mouth. then back to my eyes, the intent unmistakable. And you're going to let yourself respond naturally. Let people see that you want me. I don't. You do. He leaned closer, his mouth inches from mine. Maybe you don't want me. Maybe you hate that you feel anything for the man who's turned your life upside down. But you do feel it. And tomorrow night, I need you to stop fighting it. His proximity was making it hard to think, hard to breathe. I could feel the heat of his breath against my lips, could see the darker flecks in his eyes, could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. And what happens after the gala? I managed to ask. After we've convinced everyone we're madly in love? Then we become what we're pretending to be. His hand tightened slightly in my hair, not painful but possessive. Because this isn't going to end, Penny. You understand that, don't you? There's no going back to your old life. No returning to being nobody. You're mine now. And I protect what's mine. By controlling it. By claiming it. His mouth was so close now that I could feel the shape of the words against my lips. And right now, I'm claiming you. Your life, your safety, your future. All of it. Mine. I should have pulled away. Should have told him that people couldn't be owned. That I wasn't his to claim. But the truth was that in every way that mattered, he was right. I was his. Had been since the moment I sat on his lap and changed both our lives forever. I'm scared, I whispered, the admission torn from somewhere deep. Good. His thumb stroked the sensitive skin behind my ear, sending shivers down my spine. Fear keeps you alert, keeps you careful. Just don't let it paralyze you. Because tomorrow night everyone is going to be watching us. Looking for weakness, looking for proof that this is a sham. And if they see it, if they sense even a moment of hesitation, people will die. Starting with you. The reminder of the stakes doused some of the heat between us. Preston seemed to sense it, pulling back slightly but not releasing me. I know this isn't fair, he said quietly. I know you didn't choose any of this, but you're in it now, and the only way out is through. Through what? Through finding out who's really behind the Sorrentino play. Through stopping whatever they're planning before it destroys my family. Through becoming someone who can survive in my world. His hand slid down to rest over my heart, feeling its frantic beating. Through becoming my wife eventually. Because that's where this ends, Penny. Not with you going back to your studio apartment and your junior accountant job. That life is gone. This is your life now. The finality in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, it felt almost like relief. At least he was being honest. At least he wasn't pretending this would somehow work out happily ever after with me returning to normalcy. Okay, I heard myself say. Tomorrow night, I'll sell it. I'll make everyone believe we're real. Something flashed in his eyes. Triumph, but also something softer. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm doing this to survive, not to help you. I know. His smile was genuine. But I'm grateful anyway. He stood, offering me his hand. Come on. Let's eat. You need your strength for tomorrow, and after dinner, we'll go over the guest list for the gala. You need to know who's an ally, who's a threat, and who's waiting to see which way the wind blows. I took his hand, letting him pull me to my feet. His fingers lingered on mine a moment longer than necessary before he released me. As I followed him to the dining room where Katerina had laid out an elaborate meal, I realized something that should have alarmed me, but didn't. I was already starting to think of Preston's world as my world. Already starting to see myself through his eyes. Not as Penny Walsh, failed junior accountant, but as Penny Walsh, future Mrs. Mancini. And the most terrifying part was how natural it was beginning to feel. The black gown transformed me into someone I didn't recognize. I stood before the full-length mirror in the safe house bedroom, studying the woman reflected back. The dress was a masterpiece of design, silk that draped like water, a neckline that hinted at curves without revealing too much, a slit that showed just enough leg to be alluring without crossing into provocative. My hair had been styled by a professional Katerina had brought in, swept up in an elegant twist with a few strategic tendrils framing my face. The makeup was subtle but transformative, emphasizing my eyes and the shape of my mouth. I looked expensive, untouchable, like someone who belonged on Preston Mancini's arm. I looked nothing like myself. "You're beautiful," Katerina said softly from the doorway. "Mr. Mancini won't be able to take his eyes off you. That's the point, isn't it?" I turned from the mirror, smoothing down the silk. "To make everyone believe this is real. Is it so hard to believe?" She moved into the room, adjusting the diamond bracelet Preston had sent over. Another family heirloom, she'd explained, worn by Mancini women for 3 generations. "That a powerful man would fall for you?" When the powerful man in question arranged my entire life in less than 48 hours. Yes. It's very hard to believe. Katerina's smile was sad. "You think love requires time. It doesn't. It requires recognition. Mr. Mancini sees something in you that he values. Whether that becomes love or not depends on whether you're both brave enough to let it." Before I could respond, Marco appeared. "Boss is here. Car's waiting downstairs." My stomach dropped. This was it. No more preparation, no more rehearsing. Tonight, I would step into Preston's world completely, with hundreds of witnesses watching for any sign of weakness. Preston was waiting in the living room, and the sight of him made my breath catch. He wore a tuxedo that had clearly been custom-made, every line perfect, emphasizing the breadth of his shoulders and the lean strength of his build. His dark hair was styled back from his face, drawing attention to those intense eyes that tracked my movement as I entered. He didn't smile, didn't speak, just looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, something hungry and possessive and almost odd. "You'll do," he said finally, his voice rougher than usual. "Just you'll do?" I raised an eyebrow, surprised to find my voice steady. "I was promised I'd take your breath away. If I told you how you actually look right now, we wouldn't make it to the gala." The heat in his gaze made it clear he wasn't joking. He held out his hand. "Ready?" No, not even remotely. But I took his hand anyway, letting him lead me to the elevator. The car was a Rolls-Royce, because of course it was. Marco and Luca followed in a separate vehicle, our constant shadows. As we glided through the city streets, Preston explained the evening ahead. "The gala is being held at the Metropolitan Museum. 500 guests, mostly old money and political connections. Vincent will be there with Paige, showing everyone that the Costellos are unbothered by our engagement. The Sorrentino representatives will be there too, probably Enzo himself, Derek's uncle, though he'll pretend we're on cordial terms." "How do I tell who's dangerous?" I asked. "Everyone's dangerous." He turned to look at me. "But the immediate threats will make themselves known by how they react to you. Paige will likely say something cutting. Vincent will be coldly polite. Enzo will be overly friendly, trying to assess whether you know anything about their financial schemes. And what do I say? As little as possible. Smile. Let me do the talking. Touch me frequently. My hand, my arm, my chest. Let everyone see that you're comfortable with me. That this isn't forced." His fingers found mine, lacing through them. "And remember, we're in love. Stupidly, recklessly in love. The kind of love that makes smart men do foolish things." "Is that what this is? A foolish thing?" His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. "That depends on whether we survive it." The museum had been transformed. The grand entrance hall glittered with thousands of candles and string lights, making the marble columns glow like they'd been carved from moonlight. Women in designer gowns and men in tuxedos clustered in elegant groups, champagne flutes catching the light like jewels. I felt every eye turn toward us as we entered. Preston's hand settled at the small of my back, the touch both possessive and steadying. He guided me forward with absolute confidence, nodding to people as we passed, but not stopping. We were making an entrance, letting everyone get a good look before engaging. Preston, a man in his 70s, approached, his tuxedo straining slightly over his generous midsection. His smile was jovial, but his eyes were calculating. "Good to see you, and this must be the young lady everyone's talking about. Senator Morrison, allow me to introduce Penny Walsh, my fiancée." Preston's voice carried just enough that nearby conversations paused. "Penny, Senator Morrison sits on the Finance Committee. Very influential man." I extended my hand, letting the senator take it. His grip lingered a moment too long, his gaze traveling over me with undisguised assessment. "Charming," he said, though his tone suggested he meant something else. "Quite a surprise, Preston. We'd all assumed—" "Assumptions are dangerous," Preston interrupted smoothly, "as I'm sure you've learned in your many years of public service." The senator's smile tightened. "Indeed. Well, congratulations to you both." He melted back into the crowd, already pulling out his phone. "Spreading the news," Preston murmured in my ear. "By the end of the night, everyone in the city will know you exist." We moved deeper into the gala, Preston introducing me to a dizzying array of people whose names I immediately forgot. Businessmen and politicians, socialites and old money families. Each one studied me like I was a puzzle to be solved, trying to understand what I was doing on Preston Mancini's arm. I played my part, smiling and touching Preston's arm, leaning into him when he spoke, laughing at his occasional dry observations. And somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like an act. The way his hand rested on my hip felt natural. The way he looked at me, like I was the only person in the room, made my heart race for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. "There's Vincent," Preston said quietly, his hand tightening on my waist. "And Paige. Ready?" I followed his gaze to where Vincent Costello stood near the bar, his daughter beside him. Paige looked stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than my entire education. Her dark hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like old money and breeding, everything I wasn't. And she was staring at me with undisguised hatred. "Remember," Preston murmured as we approached, "you have nothing to apologize for. You're where you belong." Vincent saw us coming. His expression remained neutral, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Paige's hands clenched around her champagne flute hard enough that I worried the glass might shatter. "Vincent, Paige." Preston nodded politely. "Enjoying the evening?" "We were," Paige said, her voice acid. "Until you arrived." "Paige," Vincent warned. "No, father. I'm not going to pretend this is acceptable." She turned her fury on me. "You have no idea what you've walked into. No idea what you've cost me. Cost us all." "I'm sorry you were hurt," I said quietly, meaning it. Whatever else was happening, Paige had been publicly humiliated. That wasn't her fault. "Sorry?" She laughed bitterly. "You're sorry? How generous. Do you have any idea who I am? Who my family is? You're nobody. A nobody playing dress-up in expensive clothes thinking you can fit into our world." "That's enough," Preston said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. "Is it? Because I think we're just getting started." Paige stepped closer, her perfume cloying and expensive. "You think you won something by stealing him? You didn't. You painted a target on your back. And when Preston gets bored of his little project, and he will, you'll have nowhere to go. No family to protect you. no one to pick up the pieces. Unlike you, I heard myself say, who has a father willing to start a war over a broken engagement. That must be exhausting, being worth so much violence. The words came out before I could stop them. Paige's face went white, then red. Vincent's expression darkened dangerously. Preston's hand on my waist became almost painful in its grip. Penny, perhaps? No, let her speak. Vincent's voice was cold. I'm interested to hear what the woman who destroyed decades of alliance has to say. I should have backed down, should have apologized and let Preston smooth things over. But something in Paige's contempt, in Vincent's barely veiled threat, made me reckless. I didn't destroy anything, I said, meeting Vincent's gaze. If decades of alliance can be undone by one woman at a bar, then maybe it wasn't as strong as everyone pretended. The silence that fell was absolute. I could feel Preston's tension, could see Marco and Luca moving closer through my peripheral vision. I'd crossed a line. Probably multiple lines. Then Vincent laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound, but genuine. She has spirit, I'll give you that. Stupid, but spirit. He turned to Preston. You've chosen poorly, my friend. Beauty and fire aren't enough to survive what's coming. What's coming, Vincent? Preston asked softly. Are you threatening my fiancé? I'm stating facts. The protection of the Costello family is no longer available to you. Whatever moves against you, we won't interfere. Consider it a wedding gift. How generous. Preston's voice remained calm, but I could feel the coiled violence in his stance. I'll be sure to send a thank you note. Vincent's smile was cold. Do that, and enjoy the evening while you can. Both of you. He took Paige's elbow, steering her away. She looked back once, her expression promising retribution. The moment they were gone, Preston pulled me toward a quieter corner, his movements controlled but urgent. What the hell was that? She started it. I don't care who started it. You don't antagonize Vincent Costello. You don't give him ammunition to justify coming after us. His hands gripped my arms, not painful but firm. Do you understand what you've done? He was looking for an excuse to escalate. You just handed it to him. I'm sorry, I said, shame burning through me. She was so... and I didn't think. That's the problem. You can't afford not to think. Not here. Not with these people. He released me, running a hand through his hair. Christ. Penny. I told you to let me handle it. I know. I'm sorry. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the warmth of the crowded room. She made me feel small, like I was nothing, and I couldn't just stand there and take it. Preston's expression softened slightly. He pulled me against him, his arms coming around me in a gesture that might have looked romantic to observers but felt more like restraint. You are nothing to them. That's what they see when they look at you, an outsider, an interloper. And every time you prove them right by reacting emotionally instead of strategically, you make it worse. I don't know how to be strategic, I admitted against his chest. I don't know how to play these games. Then you're going to learn. Fast. He tipped my face up to his expression intense. Because this isn't over. Paige and Vincent aren't the only threats here tonight. The Santinos are watching. People are already placing bets on how long you'll survive. And if they sense weakness... Preston! A booming voice interrupted us. A man in his 50s approached, his tuxedo immaculate, his smile wide and friendly. Too friendly. And this must be the famous Penny Walsh. I've been dying to meet you. Preston's arms tightened around me fractionally before he released me, turning to face the newcomer with a polite smile. Enzo, I wasn't sure you'd make it tonight. Enzo Sorrentino. Derek's uncle. The man orchestrating the theft from Preston's accounts. And he was standing right in front of us, smiling like we were old friends. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Enzo's gaze traveled over me, assessing and calculating. You've caused quite the stir, my dear, breaking up the engagement of the decade. Very dramatic. It wasn't intentional, I said carefully, remembering Preston's warning about saying too little. Of course not. These things never are. His smile widened. You know, you look familiar. Have we met before? I don't think so. Perhaps you just have one of those faces, common features. The insult was delivered so smoothly it took me a moment to register it. In any case, congratulations are in order. Preston is a very lucky man. I'm the lucky one, I said, surprising myself. I took Preston's hand, lacing our fingers together. To have found someone who sees me, really sees me. That's rare. Something flickered in Preston's eyes. Surprise, then something warmer. His thumb stroked over my knuckles. The feeling is mutual. Enzo watched our interaction with undisguised interest. Young love. How refreshing. Though I do wonder... He paused delicately. How does someone like you, working as a junior accountant, end up catching Preston Mancini's eye? It's quite the Cinderella story. The mention of my job was deliberate. He was letting us know he'd done his research, that he knew exactly who I was and where I worked. Right place, right time, I said, keeping my voice light. Sometimes fate just works out. Fate, yes. Enzo's smile took on a sharper edge. Or manipulation. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, don't you think? I think, Preston interrupted, his voice cool, that you're dancing around something, Enzo. If you have a point, make it. No point at all. Just making conversation with your charming fiancé. Enzo raised his champagne flute in a mock toast. To fate. May it be kind to you both. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving a wake of unease behind him. He knows, I said quietly. About Derek, about the setup. He knows, and he's taunting us with it. Of course he knows. He probably planned the whole thing. Preston guided me toward the terrace, away from the crowds. The night air was cool against my overheated skin. He's feeling confident, which means he thinks whatever he's planning is going to work. The financial scheme, the money he's stealing from you. That's part of it, but I think it's bigger than that. Preston leaned against the balustrade, looking out over the city. The broken engagement, the public humiliation, the financial drain. It's all designed to weaken me, to make other families question my judgment, my stability, to make me look vulnerable. So they can move against you. So they can take what's mine when I'm too distracted to defend it. He turned to me. That's why you're so important, Penny. Not just as my supposed fiancé, but as the key to unraveling their financial scheme. If we can prove what they're doing, if we can show the other families that the Santinos are thieves, we take away their credibility, make them the vulnerable ones. How long until I can start on the audit? Tomorrow. I'm bringing you into my offices, setting you up with everything you need. Full access to all the accounts, all the records, whatever you need to find the proof. A commotion from inside made us both turn. Raised voices, the sound of glass breaking. Preston immediately moved toward the door, his body positioned between me and whatever was happening. Through the glass, I could see people backing away from two men who were shoving each other. One of them was Dante Costello, Vincent's eldest son. The other I didn't recognize. But from the way people were reacting, he was someone important. Stay here, Preston ordered, already moving inside. I didn't stay. I followed him, staying close as he pushed through the crowd. Marco and Luca materialized beside us, their hands inside their jackets, where I knew weapons were holstered. Don't care what your father promised, Dante was shouting, his face flushed with alcohol and rage. The deal is off. You disrespect my family. You pay the price. I didn't disrespect anyone. the other man protested. I just said, "You said my sister wasn't worth crying over." Dante shoved him again. "You said Preston Mancini was smart to trade up." Oh God, this was about me, about Preston's choice. "That's enough." Preston's voice cut through the chaos. "Dante, stand down. This is your fault." Dante whirled on Preston, fury blazing in his eyes. "You humiliated my sister. You broke your word. And now everyone thinks they can—" He spotted me behind Preston. "Her. This is all because of her." He lunged toward me. Preston caught him, twisting his arm behind his back with brutal efficiency. Dante cried out, struggling, but Preston held him immobile. "Touch her," Preston said, his voice deadly quiet, "and you won't leave this building alive." The room had gone silent. Everyone watching. Everyone witnessing Preston Mancini defending his fiancée against Vincent Costello's son. "You're making a mistake," Dante hissed. "Your father will do nothing." Preston released him with a shove. "Because he knows that starting a war over wounded pride is bad for business. Tell him I said that. Tell him that the next Costello who threatens what's mine will face consequences." Dante stumbled back, rubbing his arm. His gaze found mine, full of promise. "This isn't over. It is for tonight." Preston turned to the crowd. "My apologies for the disruption. Please continue enjoying the evening." He took my hand and led me toward the exit, Marco and Luca flanking us. Behind us, I could hear the murmur of voices rising, speculation and shock rippling through the crowd. We'd made a spectacle. Exactly what Preston had wanted to avoid. In the car, he was silent, his jaw tight with barely controlled anger. I didn't try to speak, didn't try to apologize again. What was there to say? When we finally reached the safe house, he followed me inside. Marco and Luca remained in the hallway, giving us privacy. "I'm sorry," I said finally, unable to bear the silence any longer. "I know I made it worse. With Paige, with—" "Stop apologizing." He moved toward me, backing me against the wall. His hands came up to bracket my head, caging me in. "You want to know what made it worse? Not standing up to Paige. That was perfect. That was exactly what my fiancé would do. Defend her position, show she's not intimidated. Then what? What made it worse was me, losing control, threatening Dante publicly. That was sloppy, emotional. Exactly what they want. To make me so focused on protecting you that I stop thinking strategically." His forehead dropped to rest against mine. "You're becoming a liability, Penny. And I can't afford liabilities." "Then let me go," I whispered, even though we both knew that wasn't possible. "I can't." His voice was rough, almost anguished. "Because somewhere between yesterday and right now, you stopped being a strategy and started being something else." "What?" "Mine." He kissed me then, hard and desperate, pouring all his frustration and fear and unexpected want into it. I kissed him back with equal desperation, my hands fisting in his tuxedo jacket, pulling him closer. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were dark, with something that looked almost like desperation. "Tomorrow," he said, "we find out what the Santinos are planning. We prove they're stealing from me. And we stop them before this becomes a war we can't win." "And tonight?" I asked. "Tonight, you stay here where you're safe. And I try to remember that you're a means to an end, not—" He stopped himself. "Not what?" He kissed me again, softer this time. "Not what you're becoming." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with the taste of him on my lips and the terrible certainty that this, whatever this was, had stopped being about survival and started being something far more dangerous, something that felt almost like falling. The offices of Castellano Holdings occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming tower in the financial district. I stood in the elevator beside Preston, watching the numbers climb, my stomach knotting with each floor. Today, I stopped being just his captive fiancé and became something else. His accountant, his investigator, his weapon against the people trying to destroy him. The weight of the responsibility was crushing. "You look terrified," Preston observed, his hand finding the small of my back. "I am terrified. What if I don't find anything? What if whatever Richard Chen discovered is buried too deep, or they've covered their tracks, or... Then we keep looking." His voice was calm, certain. "But you will find it, Penny. You're good at what you do. Better than you give yourself credit for." The elevator doors opened directly into a reception area that screamed wealth and power. Marble floors, original artwork, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine rose immediately as we entered. "Mr. Mancini, good morning. Your office is ready, and Miss Walsh's workspace has been prepared as requested." "Thank you, Sophia." Preston guided me past the reception desk, through a maze of hallways where well-dressed people moved with purpose. Every person we passed nodded deferentially to Preston, their gazes sliding over me with undisguised curiosity. His office was at the far end, massive, with windows on 2 walls and furnishings that probably cost more than most people's houses. But he didn't stop there. Instead, he led me to an adjacent room that had been transformed overnight into a fully equipped workspace. Multiple monitors, a high-end computer, file cabinets, and a conference table covered in banker's boxes. "These are copies of all the account records for the past year," Preston explained, gesturing to the boxes. "Digital files are on the system. I've already logged you in with full administrative access. No restrictions, no locked files. You have complete transparency into every aspect of my financial operations." I moved to the desk, running my fingers over the smooth surface. "You're trusting me with everything." "Yes." No hesitation, no caveat. "Why? You barely know me." He moved closer, turning me to face him. "Because you have every reason to help me, and no reason to betray me. Because you're smart enough to understand that your survival depends on mine. And because..." He paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face. "Because I believe you're exactly who you seem to be. Someone honest in a world built on lies." The faith in his voice made my chest tight. "What if I disappoint you?" "You won't." He kissed my forehead, the gesture tender and unexpected. "I'll be next door if you need anything. Marco is stationed outside your door. No one enters without my approval." After he left, I stood alone in the room, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the task ahead. Somewhere in these files, in these thousands of transactions, was proof of the Santinos scheme. Evidence that would either save Preston or damn us both. I took a deep breath and got to work. The first few hours were spent familiarizing myself with the structure of Preston's empire. It was even more complex than I'd imagined. Dozens of subsidiary companies, each with their own accounts, their own transactions. Real estate holdings, import-export businesses, restaurants, nightclubs, construction firms. The legitimate operations generated substantial income, carefully documented and properly taxed. But beneath that legitimate layer, I could see the shadows. Money moving in patterns that made no sense from a purely business perspective. Large cash deposits broken into smaller amounts to avoid reporting requirements. Transfers between accounts that seemed designed to obscure rather than clarify. This was what Richard Chen must have seen. The legitimate facade and the criminal reality beneath. Around noon, Katerina appeared with lunch, a gourmet spread that I barely tasted, too focused on the spreadsheet in front of me. I'd found the first discrepancy, a payment to a consulting firm that didn't exist. The company name was registered, but when I traced it through public records, there was no business address, no employees, no actual services provided. A shell company, designed to siphon money from Preston's accounts. My heart racing, I pulled up the payment history. The consulting firm had received regular payments for 6 months, totaling just over $700,000. Small enough to slip under the radar, large enough to add up to serious money. I documented everything, creating a separate file with screenshots and notes. Then I kept digging. By mid-afternoon, I'd found 3 more shell companies, each one following the same pattern, incorporated 6 to 8 months ago, receiving regular payments from different Castellano subsidiaries, providing no actual services. Together, they'd drained nearly $2 million from Preston's operations. But this couldn't be all of it. Derek had mentioned $5 million to Vincent. There had to be more. I was deep in the import-export records when Preston entered, bringing coffee and the scent of his cologne. "Find anything?" he asked, setting the coffee beside my keyboard. I turned the monitor toward him, showing the shell company documentation. 4 fake consulting firms, $2 million stolen over the past 8 months. All the payments were authorized by someone with high-level access to your accounting systems. His expression darkened as he studied the screen. Someone at Crawford and Associates. Most likely, these payments would have gone through standard approval processes. Someone had to enter them into the system, make them look legitimate enough to pass initial scrutiny. Derek, or someone else working with him. Derek's only been at the firm 3 years. This level of access would typically require more seniority. Preston pulled out his phone, making a call. He spoke in rapid Italian, his tone clipped and commanding. When he hung up, his jaw was tight. "I'm having my people pull the complete list of everyone at Crawford and Associates who had access to my accounts. We'll know by tonight who else is involved." "There's more," I said, pulling up another file. "These shell companies, they're not just taking money from you. They're sending it somewhere." I traced the outgoing transfers, and they all flow through 3 intermediary banks before disappearing into offshore accounts. "Can you follow them?" "Not without access to the international banking system. These accounts are in countries with strict privacy laws. We'd need legal authority to pierce the veil. Or someone who doesn't care about legal authority." Preston's smile was cold. "I have contacts in those countries. People who owe me favors. If I give them the account numbers, they can find out who's controlling them. That's illegal. So is stealing $2 million from me." He leaned against the desk, studying me. "You're going to have to get comfortable with the gray areas, Penny. My world doesn't operate by normal rules." I saved my work, turning to face him. "I'm starting to realize that. Last night when you threatened Dante, that wasn't just posturing, was it? You really would have killed him if he'd touched me." Without hesitation. No apology, no softening. "The moment you became mine, you became sacred. Anyone who threatens you threatens me, and I don't tolerate threats." The casual way he discussed murder should have terrified me. Instead, it made me feel safe in a twisted way, knowing that someone that dangerous was on my side. "What happens when we have proof?" I asked. "When we can show exactly what the Santinos did. Then I call a meeting of the families, present the evidence, and let them decide the Santinos' fate." His eyes glinted with something dark. "Because stealing from one family threatens all of them. If they can do this to me, they can do it to anyone. The other bosses will want them eliminated to prevent it from happening to them. You're going to use the other families to do your dirty work. I'm going to use them to deliver justice. There's a difference." My phone, the new one Preston had given me, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My stomach dropped as I opened it. A photo. Me, sitting at this desk, taken through the window from one of the surrounding buildings. Below it, "Hard at work. I see. Hope you find what you're looking for. It won't save you." Preston saw my expression and took the phone from my nerveless fingers. His face went dark with fury. "Marco!" he shouted. The bodyguard appeared instantly. Preston showed him the phone. Get a team on the surrounding buildings. Find out who took this and where they are now, and get the blinds closed on all windows facing out. I want this entire floor secured. Right away, boss. Within minutes, the office was transformed. Heavy blinds dropped over the windows, blocking the view. Additional security personnel appeared, checking every room, every closet, every potential entry point. I sat at the desk, trying to keep my hands from shaking. They know what I'm doing, I said quietly. They know I'm searching for evidence. Which means we're close. They wouldn't threaten you if they weren't worried. Preston crouched beside my chair, taking my cold hands in his warm ones. I won't let them touch you. I promise. How did they even know I was here? How did they know to look for me in this specific office? His expression grew grim. Someone in this building is feeding them information. Someone on my payroll. The betrayal in his voice was evident. For a man like Preston, loyalty was everything. The idea that someone he trusted had sold him out was almost worse than the theft itself. We need to find out who, I said. Because if they know what I'm doing, they'll try to stop me. And they've already proven they're willing to kill to protect their secrets. Preston's phone rang. He answered it, listened, his expression growing darker with each passing second. When he hung up, he looked at me with something that might have been fear. That was my contact at the police department. They just found a body in the East River. Female, mid-20s. Blonde. She's been dead about a week. My blood turned to ice. Amanda. They're running identification now, but based on the description... He stopped himself. Derek and Greg are in protective custody. They've been cooperating, giving us names and details. But Amanda disappeared 3 days ago. No one knew where she went. Oh, God. I pressed my hands to my mouth. They killed her. Because she helped set me up. Because she knew too much. Or to send a message. To show Derek and Greg what happens if they keep talking. Preston pulled me to my feet, his arms coming around me. This is why I need you to stay close. Why I need you to trust that I can protect you. Because they're not playing games anymore. I clung to him, my earlier confidence evaporating. What if we can't stop them? What if they're too powerful, too entrenched? Then we make them more powerful than them. He pulled back enough to look at me. We finish the audit. We get irrefutable proof. And then we end this before anyone else dies. I returned to work with renewed urgency, the image of Amanda's hypothetical body pushing me forward. Preston remained in the office with me, working on his own laptop, his presence a solid comfort. By evening, I'd found it. The smoking gun Richard Chen must have discovered before they killed him. Preston. My voice cracked. Look at this. He came to stand behind me, reading over my shoulder as I showed him what I'd found. Not just the shell companies, but something bigger. A systematic scheme to inflate invoices, pad expenses, and skim profits from every major account Preston held. The construction company was overbilling by 30% on materials. The import-export business was recording shipments that never existed. The restaurants were reporting false food costs and inflated staff payments. Every single subsidiary was being used to funnel money out of Preston's operations. And all of it flowed through Crawford and Associates, where Derek and his accomplices had manipulated the books to hide the theft. The total? Just over $5 million. Exactly what Derek had mentioned to Enzo. This is enough, Preston said quietly. This is more than enough to prove what they've done. But we still don't know where the money went. The offshore accounts are still hidden. I have the account numbers. That's enough for my contacts to trace. He made another call, speaking in Italian again. When he finished, he looked at me with something like pride. You did it, Penny. You found what Richard Chen found. What got him killed. And now what? We're targets too. Now we call the meeting, tomorrow night, every major family boss in the city, and we present this evidence, show them what the Santinos have done, let them pass judgment. Tomorrow? That's so soon. What if we wait and they kill you too? His hands framed my face. No. We move fast, while we have the advantage, before they realize we have everything we need to destroy them. A knock at the door interrupted us. Marco entered, his expression grim. Boss, we have a problem. Enzo Sorrentino just showed up downstairs. He's demanding to speak with you, says it's urgent. Preston's entire demeanor shifted, becoming cold and controlled. How many men? Just him. Says he's here to negotiate. Negotiate. Preston's laugh was without humor. He knows we've found something. He's here to try to buy his way out. He turned to me. Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Marco or me. Preston, wait. I'll be fine. Enzo won't try anything here in my own building. But I need you safe while I find out what he wants. He kissed me hard and fast, then was gone. Marco followed, leaving me alone with 2 other security guards stationed outside my door. I locked it as instructed, then returned to the computer. While Preston dealt with Enzo, I could keep working, could find more evidence, could build an even stronger case. But my hands were shaking too badly to type. 20 minutes passed. 30. I paced the office, my mind conjuring increasingly terrible scenarios. What if Enzo had brought a team despite what Marco said? What if this was a trap? What if Preston... The door handle rattled. I spun toward it, my heart in my throat. Penny, open up. Preston's voice. I unlocked the door. Preston entered, his expression thunderous. He was alone, Marco nowhere in sight. What happened? What did Enzo want? To make a deal. Preston moved to the window, staring out at the city even though the blinds were closed. He knows we've found the shell companies. He's offering to return $3 million and disappear if we let him and Derek walk away. $3 million? But they stole 5. I know. He's trying to keep $2 million as his fee for executing the scheme. Preston's hands clenched into fists. He actually had the audacity to call it a finder's fee. What did you tell him? I told him to go to hell. He turned to face me. Then I told him that by this time tomorrow, he and everyone involved in this scheme would be dead or in prison. His choice. Preston, he threatened you. The words came out flat, emotionless, which somehow made them more terrifying. He said that if I moved against him, you'd end up like Amanda. That accidents happen to people who dig too deep into things that don't concern them. Fear shot through me. He admitted to killing Amanda? Not directly, but the implication was clear. Preston moved toward me, his eyes blazing. Which is why the meeting happens tomorrow. Why this ends now. Because I won't risk you. Won't let them have another chance to hurt you. What about you? You're a target too. I've always been a target. That's the price of power. His hands settled on my shoulders. But you were innocent. You didn't ask for any of this, and I'll be damned if I let them take you from me. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered me. Instead, it made me feel cherished, protected, like I mattered to someone for the first time in longer than I could remember. I'm scared, I admitted. Good. Fear keeps you careful. He pulled me against him, his arms solid and safe around me. But don't let it paralyze you. Tomorrow night, we walk into that meeting together. You present the evidence, show every family what the Sorrentinos did, and then we watch them tear Enzo apart for breaking the most sacred rule, stealing from our own. And after that? After that, we plan a wedding. He said it casually, but his arms tightened around me. A real one. Not a show for the families, but an actual marriage. Because somewhere between saving you and needing you, I fell in love with you, Penny Walsh." My breath caught. "You don't mean that." "I do. I know it's fast. I know it's insane. But I've never been more certain of anything." He pulled back enough to look at me. "You saw me at my worst, threatening people, controlling your life, being everything you should run from. And you didn't run. You stayed. You fought. You stood beside me when you could have stood against me. I didn't have a choice. You always had a choice. You could have fought harder to leave. Could have refused to help with the audit. Could have made this so difficult that keeping you wasn't worth the trouble." His hand cupped my face. "But you didn't. You chose to stay, to help, to become part of my world instead of a victim of it." Tears burned my eyes. I don't know how to be in love. I don't know how to be someone's wife, especially not someone like you. Neither do I. Neither of us has any idea what we're doing. He smiled, and it transformed his face. "But we'll figure it out together. After we survive tomorrow." I kissed him then, pouring every confused emotion into it. Fear and desire and the terrifying realization that he was right. I had fallen in love with him, with the monster who saved me, with the dangerous man who made me feel safe. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Preston rested his forehead against mine. "Tomorrow," he promised, "we end this, and then we start something new." "A life," I said softly. "A life," he agreed. Together. The meeting happened in a warehouse on the waterfront, neutral ground that belonged to no family. Every major boss in the city was there, seated around a massive table like some twisted boardroom. Vincent Costello, his sons flanking him. Representatives from the Irish families, the Chinese syndicates, the various Italian factions. All the power players whose cooperation kept the city running smoothly, whose conflicts were carefully managed to avoid all-out war. And at the head of the table sat Preston, with me beside him. His fiancée, his accountant, his proof that the Santinos had broken faith. Enzo sat across from us, Derek beside him, both flanked by their own people. Enzo looked confident, almost amused. Derek looked terrified. "Thank you all for coming," Preston began, his voice carrying easily through the space. "I've called this meeting because one of our own has betrayed us. Has stolen from me, yes, but more importantly, has demonstrated that none of us are safe from internal corruption." "That's a serious accusation," one of the Chinese representatives said. "You have proof?" "I have proof." Preston gestured to me. "My fiancée, Penny Walsh, is a forensic accountant. She spent the past week analyzing my financial records. Penny, if you would." I stood, my legs somehow steady despite my racing heart. I'd rehearsed this presentation a dozen times, knew every detail by memory. But actually standing here, in front of these dangerous men, was different than practicing in Preston's office. "For the past 8 months," I began, "someone has been systematically stealing from Castellano Holdings. They created shell companies to hide the theft. Inflated invoices, padded expenses, recorded false transactions. In total, they've stolen just over $5 million. I pulled up the first document on the large screen behind me, showing the shell company registrations. Then the payment records. Then the traces to the offshore accounts. With each piece of evidence, the room grew quieter, more attentive, more angry. The theft was facilitated through Crawford and Associates, the accounting firm that handles Castellano Holdings books. Specifically, through Derek Hutchinson. I gestured to Derek, who had gone pale, whose mother is Maria Sorrentino, niece of Antonio Sorrentino. Derek worked with his uncle Enzo to execute this scheme. "These are lies," Enzo protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Fabrications designed to— I have bank records, I interrupted, pulling up another document. Wire transfers. Corporate registrations with your signature, Enzo. Digital fingerprints that trace directly to computers at Crawford and Associates. This isn't fabrication. This is fact. The room exploded into angry conversation. Vincent Costello stood, slamming his hand on the table. You steal from one of us. You steal from all of us, he roared. If this evidence is real, it's real. Preston confirmed. Every document, every transaction, every piece of this scheme is documented and verified. The Santinos have been robbing me blind while pretending to be allies, while planning to start a war between my family and yours, Vincent, using my broken engagement as the spark. Understanding dawned on Vincent's face. The girl, Penny. They used her to create conflict between us. Exactly. They paid Derek and his accomplices to manipulate her into approaching me, to create a situation where I would publicly reject your daughter, to turn our families against each other while they robbed us both. Both? Vincent's eyes narrowed. Preston nodded to me. I pulled up the final set of documents. The Santinos haven't just been stealing from Castellano Holdings. They've been skimming from Costello operations too. Different scheme, different shell companies, but same result. You've lost approximately $3 million over the past year. The silence that fell was absolute. Every eye in the room turned to Enzo, who had gone from confident to cornered. You can't prove, he stammered. We can prove all of it, Preston said coldly. The question now is what we do about it. The Santinos have broken faith, have stolen from multiple families, have attempted to start a war that would have cost all of us blood and treasure. There's only one appropriate response. Wait. Enzo stood, his hands raised. We can negotiate. I can return the money with interest. No one has to. You killed Richard Chen, I said, my voice cutting through his pleading. You killed Amanda Brewster, both of them because they knew too much about what you were doing. You can't prove that. I can prove the financial crimes. The murders are just a bonus. I looked around the room. But everyone here knows what the Santinos are capable of, what they've done. The question is whether you're willing to let them get away with it. The vote was unanimous. Every boss, every representative, every voice calling for the same thing: elimination. The Santinos were finished. Enzo's face crumpled. Derek began to cry, and Preston. Preston looked at me with such pride and possessiveness that it took my breath away. It's done, he said quietly. It's over. 3 months later, I stood in the same cathedral where generations of Mancinis had been married, wearing a dress that cost more than my old studio apartment. My hair was styled perfectly, my makeup flawless. I looked like a Mancini bride. I felt like myself. Preston waited at the altar, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo. When I reached him, he took my hands, and his eyes held something I'd never expected to see: genuine love. You sure about this? He murmured. Last chance to run. Where would I go? I smiled. You'd just find me. Every time. His thumb stroked over my knuckles. For the rest of our lives, I'll find you. The ceremony passed in a blur. Vows spoken, rings exchanged, the pronouncement that made us officially, legally, permanently bound. When Preston kissed me, I tasted promise and possession and something that felt like home. At the reception, Vincent Costello approached us, Paige on his arm. She looked different now, softer somehow, less angry. Congratulations, she said stiffly but sincerely. I hope you'll be happy. Thank you, I replied. I'm sorry for how everything happened. Don't be. You probably saved me from a loveless marriage. She glanced at her father, and you definitely saved our family from being destroyed by the Santinos. We're even. After they moved away, Preston pulled me close. Dance with me, Mrs. Mancini. Mrs. Mancini. The name still felt foreign, but also right. As we swayed to the music, surrounded by the most powerful and dangerous people in the city, I realized something. I had started this journey as nobody, desperate for $400 and willing to take a foolish risk for it. I ended it as somebody. The wife of a mafia boss. The woman who'd helped take down the Santinos. The accountant who could trace money through any maze. But most importantly, I ended it as someone who was loved. Fiercely, completely, possessively loved by a man who saw me not as a pawn, but as a partner. "What are you thinking?" Preston asked, his lips against my temple. "That I'm glad Derek pointed me toward your table that night." "Liar. You were terrified." "I was," I agreed. "But I'm not anymore." "No?" He pulled back to look at me. "What are you now?" I smiled, standing on my toes to kiss him. Home. And in his arms, surrounded by danger and power and love I never expected to find, I finally was.